How to write, publish, and market your best nonfiction book. That's the topic of the hour. Hello, good day, greetings, ciao, namaste, and salams to peeps from all around the world. Welcome to the live. Now, this particular series is called the Impact 2.0 Show, where we feature purpose-led leaders who are making a meaningful impact through their work and touching and changing lives of many. Stick around till the end, and I promise you that you'll walk away with at least one, if not more, practical yet scrumptious takeaways from each of these live sessions, like an ice cream sundae topped with heavy whipped cream, melted dark chocolate, and a dash of gold dust. But most importantly, if you turn up live, you'll get a chance to ask each guest questions that are bugging you like an itch that can't be scratched. Now, my today's guest is the founder of Rethink Press and Business Book Awards. She has authored 13 books, with the newest book, which has just been released on Amazon, called Book Builder. So will you please put your virtual hands together to welcome my fantabulous guest, Lucy McCarraher.
Hi, Amber.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
How are you doing?
I'm doing really well, thank you. Yeah, everything's going very well.
Awesome. Now, listen, before we get into the rice and curry of this conversation, we are going to start off the show with a quick fire round. Are you ready?
I think so.
Okay, don't be scared. It's all going to be fun. All right. What's something that everyone else seems to love that you don't understand?
Music. I mean, just generally, I don't particularly like music. I know that's very weird, but that's it.
Not even classical music?
No, especially not classical music.
Okay, good one. Okay, good. Phew. All right. If you could read one book over and over for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Am I allowed to have an anthology or just the one?
Yeah, anything. Anything.
An anthology of all Virginia Woolf's books. I'll read that over and over again.
Oh, awesome. And what's the best advice you've ever been given?
I think the best advice I've ever been given is to do with books, and it's be kind to your reader. And that means make it easy for them to read your book, and so in your style and in the way you write it. So that, I think that was a really good piece of advice I once got from an editor.
Oh, wow. Okay. And we shall be talking much more about it later on in the show anyway. All right. Quickly, deep sea or outer space? Which one would you go for?
Deep sea.
Salty or sweet?
Sweet.
Coffee or tea?
Tea.
Pancakes or waffles?
Ooh, pancakes.
Beach or mountain?
Beach.
Comedy or drama?
Drama.
Well, we did it, Lucy, and this deserves a wiggle and a dance, I believe. And I'm not sure, you may or may not be familiar with this tune.
We did it! We did it! Yay! Woo! Hooray! We did it!
It's a kids tune from Dora the Explorer.
I know.
Awesome. All right, Lucy, now let's get into the rice and curry of this conversation. Now, could you imagine, Lucy, for just a moment, that I'm holding a pair of boxing gloves? Could you take these gloves from me and smash for me, and not my face, please, but some kind of book writing or publishing myth, a bogus strategy or a misconception, and set the record straight once and for all?
Okay, so the myth is that to write a good book, it has to be a bestseller. It has to sell thousands and thousands of copies. Otherwise, you won't get your money back on anything you invest in the book. Actually, that's not true at all. The more you niche your book down, a business book down, to your ideal client, the more money you will get back from your book, the more you'll get a return on your investment, not from selling loads of books, but from getting clients to your business.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. And we are obviously going to talk about why such is the case. What Lucy is saying, that you do not have to sell hundreds and thousands of business books to be able to make money, because there are other ways to do so. But a quick side note here, we are streaming to LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube simultaneously. If for some reason your LinkedIn stream plays up, which it can oftentimes, you can jump over to Facebook or YouTube. The YouTube link is here bit.ly/spreading ideas with Amber Khan. Alrighty, now let's get back into our Fab Chat. Lucy, before we go any further, could you share with our viewers and listeners, why do you do what you do?
Oh gosh, that's a really hard one. I suppose I've done quite a few things over my, if you could call it a career. So I started off in publishing, and then I moved into TV and media, and then I fell into work-life balance, and then I came back to publishing. But I suppose what's always gone through my work is writing. I just love writing and reading and expressing ideas and getting other people to express their ideas in words so that it can be passed on to as many people as possible. I think that's, and you know, books are the epitome of passing on ideas in words. So I guess that's probably what makes me do what I do, an absolute love for and investment in the idea of the book.
Yeah, and you having been authored 13 books, it makes so much sense that is your why. That this is the reason why you do what you do, because you do it yourself. You know, you spread ideas through your books, all those that you've written, and you help others do exactly the same. So let's start with the obvious now. Why write a business book, and who should write it?
Okay, so writing a business book helps you claim your expertise in your own area. I mean, there is nothing that sells you like a book. Interestingly, a book is not an overt sales tool. It's not a marketing brochure. It's not a business card. It's not a pitch. It's not social media. But it is the most amazing way to sell yourself, because it is a piece of value. It's a valuable artifact in its own right. So it has a special place in everybody's thoughts. So the way to use your book is to use it as an undercover sales agent. And that's why every entrepreneur or business owner or business leader who knows their territory, knows what they're talking about, has experience and expertise, should write a book, partly literally just to share their value with what they know with other people in a generous, giving kind of way, but also to assert their own expertise and authority, to get their influence out there, and to grow their business. I mean, a book transforms people's businesses very often if you then market it and use it right. So that's why you should write a book. When you know your stuff, when you've got your experience, when you've got case studies and a story to tell, that's when you should write your book.
That's when you should write it. Absolutely. And I think book just gives instant credibility and makes you a thought leader in your space, you know.
It does, absolutely, yes. And you know, if you want to speak more, if you want to be more visible, then you know, your book is the thing that will get you in there. It's your ambassador. It goes out and sells you and talks to people, and you know, so, as you say, it's total credibility when you put your book on the table, hand it to someone, post it to someone. When they buy your book, there's something about that format that is kind of archetypally sort of says expert. So that's why you should write your book and publish your book as a proper published, you know, physical book, not just the ebook or the audio book, or both of which are great, and you should have those too. But the physical book does something that nothing else can, I think.
I think that what you said about the best thing about writing a book and having a book published is when it can speak for you when you're not around. This is what I love about it. You know, when you post books to your ideal clients or prospects, you're not there in person. You're not doing a speaking gig. You're not even doing a webinar or anything. You know, it's the book is just doing all the work for you, probably with as many people as possible, while you're somewhere else, you're doing something else.
Exactly. And people pass on your book. They talk about your book. They recommend your book. They keep it on their tables. It's something that, you know, people can be proud of. Nobody is ever going to throw away or delete a book. You know, it's something that people really respect. So it's not like any other kind of medium.
Yeah. I love getting messages. Just like I think a couple of weeks ago, somebody on LinkedIn messaged me. We're not even connected, so we connected, and he messaged me, said, he sent me a picture. I've just ordered your book for my wife, and it is so lovely to see messages like that, and it makes you feel proud of your work. It makes you feel that hopefully it's making a difference in somebody else's life.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you help one other person by getting your book out there, it's worth doing. And actually, your book is also a massive piece of self-development, because even if no one ever sees it, the whole process of planning and structuring and then writing about what you do and your work and your knowledge is it just clarifies it so much in your own mind. I mean, a lot of our authors actually change or pivot their businesses or expand their businesses because they've written a book, and they suddenly see, they put it out there and they suddenly see how much more they could be doing. It's just, it's a great thing to do anyway. But of course, I don't think you should write a book and then not publish it. Of course you should. The process of writing it is very enlightening. It gives you huge confidence. People often think, I haven't got enough to say, I don't know enough to write a book, or have a bit of imposter syndrome around it. But when they actually go through the process and then see what they've written, they're usually very impressed with, it's great to see how much you know and how good you are. That's very kind of confidence building too.
Yeah, absolutely, totally. And we're going to talk about those writing elements. But first, let's talk about what mistakes one should avoid when writing and publishing their first business book.
Okay, so one of the things that people do wrong is simply to kind of just to start. So they say, I'm going to write a book, and they just start writing. And that is usually disastrous. So I am absolutely fixated on the idea that you must plan and you must structure your book when you start. And you also, as well, before you start, writing a single word, you must have a really detailed contents page, basically, and know where you're going, because otherwise you can very easily get overwhelmed. It gets a bit chaotic, and people often start and then kind of find it, it doesn't turn out how they thought it was going to. They think, I know exactly what I'm talking about, I'll just write. But it doesn't work like that. Or else they get writer's block and think, what could come next? But if you have planned it out in advance, you never know, and you never don't know what's going to come next. You've always got the next section to write. So that's one big mistake. I think another mistake that people make is to not take expert advice and to try and do it on their own if they've never written a book before. And you may be the expert in your own field. I mean, you are. That's why you're writing the book. But you're not necessarily an expert in writing and publishing. So, as an expert, I know I would say this, wouldn't I? But it's really much better. To do it with help and to do it with people who know what they're talking about in that field, than go it alone. Because if you write the wrong book and you don't publish it well, it can be worse than not writing a book at all, because it just doesn't represent you as a professional. So important to get it right, and to and also to position your book right. One of the mistakes people make is to think they need to write a book, as I've already kind of said, that appeals to everybody and as many people as possible. But actually, you need to position your book really carefully to the right people who are going to who you need to write to read your book, and they need to read it, who it's going to give the value to. So those are some of the mistakes that people make.
So I guess you're saying that have your value proposition right from the beginning. Don't say, okay, this book is for all the CEOs in the world.
No, exactly. You need to think about your own business, and not only what other people are going to get out of reading your book, but what you're going to get back from writing your book. You must have a purpose to writing your book for your own business. So that's what you need to be very clear on, and making sure it's heading to the right people and attracting the right people and giving them the information that they need, not too much, not too little. So ideally, they will come back, they get the information in the book, and then the ideal client will come back and say, I need you to implement this course. I know that I can see that you're brilliant, that you're great at what you do, and that you've done it for other people because you've shown me these case studies in the book. And now I need to come back and work with you. So that's the purpose of the book.
Absolutely. Because I mean, all these big speakers and authors we know, they've all published their books. Majority of their thought leadership is in the books, but obviously not everybody. Maybe few people read the books and they're able to implement the entire thing themselves and move forward with it. Majority of us need help. You know, when we read a book, we get the information, and then we need somebody to hold our hands and say, okay, can you help us take the next step?
Exactly. And your ideal client is also the person or the business that can afford to pay for your services, because if they can't afford to pay you, they're not your ideal client. So your book, you know, even if you aim it directly at that ideal client, it's also going to give value in the information to people who, you know, maybe are at startup stage or not, you know, haven't reached the point where they're prepared to pay you. But you're also giving them value because you're telling them what they can do themselves. But, you know, what you really want to do is show to people that you are worth working with and they want to come and work with you. So, it is that positioning that works.
All right. So far we've got, you need to have your purpose right. You need to know why you're writing your book. You should have a plan.
Yes.
For writing that book. Don't start with a blank page on the computer and just go, okay, what am I going to write about? So now we're going to talk about, is there a foolproof way to write a book when you've never written a book? And could you share some of the best practices?
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, that's what my latest book, written with my business partner, Joe Gregory, that's what we've done. We've taken basically a decade's worth of working with entrepreneur authors and refined it into a step-by-step practice, because that is also what one of the mistakes people make, is that they get overwhelmed by, you know, the whole task of writing a book. It seems like just a massive thing that has to be done, and there's all bits and pieces in it, and actually what you need to do is take it in steps. There is a process to it, and then, you know, each bit needs to be chunked down to a manageable size before you move on to the next one. So the first thing is to position your book. That's the first step we take, and I'm happy to sort of share how we do that in more detail later. But then when you've got your positioning right, and your positioning also will dictate the title and subtitle of the book, which is really important, because that needs to attract the right audience for your book. So then when you've positioned your book, you know exactly who you're writing it for, why, and what they'll get out of it. Then you need to go into the structure. That's the deep dive. It's not a quick thing. So we have a planning. We use coloured cards. We have a process, and we also have software based on it that we work online with our authors. So we chunk the book down into different kinds of content. So the main value, solid informational content, and then there's case studies that need to be sort of sprinkled through the book, as it were. Your own story needs to run through your book like a sort of golden thread. It's not all about you, but it's a way of engaging your reader, to tell them what you've learned and how you've learned it, and not just the things you've done.
Okay, I may have lost Lucy for a bit. Let's see what's going on. Lucy, can you hear me? Okay, I'm just going to try to bring Lucy back to a conversation. Yes, Wi-Fi, I'm sure it's tech issues, people. Sorry about this. I'm sure Lucy will join us here in a bit. But basically, what we're talking about with Lucy here, Lucy is the founder of Rethink Press. And they publish business books. I have published mine with them as well, which was exactly 6 years ago. And she has authored 13 books, and her recent book, Book Builder, I just bought yesterday, is to help entrepreneurs write their first business book if they've not written a book. So not only write, but how, writing, publishing, and of course the marketing of that book is also very important, because once we have written and published the book, we also obviously want people to read it, right? We've written it for a reason, that we want to help somebody else with that book. And so we need to get that book into the hands of those people. And there are various ways to do that. While I'm waiting for Lucy to join us, I can talk more from the marketing point of view, as to how we can make sure to that our book gets in the hands of the right people, is to this is the tactic I learned from all my mentors. Chet Holmes was the first one I had learned this from, that, you make a list of your dream 100 clients. There's various names for it, but basically make a list of the top 100 people you would love to work with, who you'd love to read your book, right? Because you believe that they could immensely benefit from it, or they might have an audience that can immensely benefit from it. So you make a list of those people, and as soon as they're published, I think Lucy is trying to join. As soon as your book is published, make sure you send them a copy. And it's not about making money from those 100 books, because how much money are you going to make from that, right? It's about getting your book in the hands of the right people, and the money will follow afterwards in terms of clients and partnerships, joint ventures, and so much more. It seems to be a technical no, Lucy is still having a bit of an issue. So I think what I can do, let's stick around and talk a little bit more about marketing for a few minutes, and I may have to end this broadcast. And okay, Lucy is here. Hey,
Hi.
Lucy.
Hi. Sorry, so I don't know what happened there.
Yeah.
Now there's weird flashing.
Yeah. It's most likely the Wi-Fi connection. I know, tech issues.
Sorry, I don't know if it's my end. I presume it is, but sorry about that.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on? Oh.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, the broadband speed, sometimes it goes up and down, and this happens to the connection. So I think, okay, let's try. Let me remove you for a second, and then I'll bring you back in. See if that. No, I see your screen is still flashing.
I don't know what's going on. I've never seen that before.
Okay. Oh, no, I thought for a moment it disappeared. Oh, okay. I have lost Lucy again, people. All right. What I'm going to do is maybe let's talk a little bit more about the marketing side of the book, and maybe end this broadcast, and we'll try again with Lucy once her Wi-Fi connection is up and running. So we were talking about getting the book in the hands of the right people, that's one of the things that one can and should do, really, because that's what you want to do, isn't it? Is for the right people to read it and get in touch with you after reading it, or they might have the exact audience that you're going after, and if they find it useful, well, guess what? They are more likely to share that with their audience as well. And I'm sure Lucy's got a lot more other tips for you. The other one is, of course, once you have written the book, make sure to repurpose it. Use the content from it for social media, for newsletters, for emails. YouTube channel, even, you've written all the content, your thought leadership inside the book, make a webinar series out of it, or a YouTube series, podcast series. There's so much that can come out of it. You do not have to write new content. Repurpose that content into videos, short clips, quotes from the book, and like I said, newsletters, ebooks, and so many ways to then market that book for months and years to come, and leverage the blood, sweat, and tears you put into writing that book for years to come. Okay, folks, what I'm going to do, I'm going to end this broadcast and try to fix this, and hopefully bring Lucy back on it in a bit. See you in a bit.